The stars around Earth suddenly changed. Where there had been empty space just moments before, 300 massive ships appeared like ghosts, becoming real. Each ship was the size of a small city, their dark metal hulls gleaming under the distant sun's light. They moved in perfect formation, as if they were all controlled by one mind. Admiral Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of the orbital station New Seoul, watching the enemy fleet through the large windows. His face was calm, but his hands shook slightly as he held his coffee cup. He had been a soldier for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Sir, we're getting a transmission from the lead ship," said Lieutenant Park, his voice tight with fear. "Put it on the main screen," Kyung-ho ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a tall lizard walking on two legs. Its skin was green and covered in small scales that caught the light. Its eyes were yellow and cold, like a snake's eyes. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh, but the translation device made the words clear. "People of Earth." The alien said, "I am Fleet Commander Vexitar of the Viridian Collective. Your planet has been chosen for integration into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. All weapons must be powered down. All military forces must stand down. If you comply, some of you will be allowed to live as workers. If you resist, we will destroy every living thing on your world." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Kyung-ho felt his stomach drop. Earth's defense force had only 50 ships, and they were old and outdated compared to what he was seeing outside. The alien vessels were easily 10 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. Captain Ji-won was commanding the Earth defense ship Taeguk when the alien fleet appeared. She was in her ready room, reviewing patrol reports, when the emergency alarm started screaming. She ran to the bridge, her boots echoing in the metal corridors. "Report!" she shouted as she took her command chair. 300 unknown vessels just dropped out of hyperspace," said her first officer, Commander Lee. "They're massive, Captain. Our sensors can barely get readings on them." Ji-won looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were arranged in a perfect sphere around Earth, with the largest vessel at the center. Each ship was bristling with weapon ports and energy shields that glowed with a strange blue light. "Have they made contact?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Admiral Kyung-ho is forwarding the message now." Ji-won watched the alien commander's speech with growing dread. She had always known that humans might encounter hostile aliens someday, but she had hoped they would be more evenly matched. This looked like a slaughter waiting to happen. On Earth, President Dong-soo was pulled from a meeting about climate change and rushed to the underground command center beneath Seoul. The concrete walls were thick enough to survive a nuclear attack, but he wondered if they would be enough to protect against alien weapons. Defense Minister Hae-rin was already there, along with the chiefs of staff from all the military branches. The main screen showed the alien fleet, with red dots marking each enemy ship. There were so many red dots that they almost covered the display. "What are our options?" President Dong-soo asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Not many, sir." Admiral Kyung-ho's voice came through the communication system from New Seoul Station. "Our 50 ships against their 300. Our weapons are projectile-based and energy shields. Theirs appear to be pure energy weapons with quantum shielding. In a straight fight, we would last maybe 20 minutes. Hae-rin pulled up intelligence reports on her tablet. "We've been tracking their empire for the past 5 years through deep space monitoring. They call themselves the Viridian Collective. They've conquered 47 star systems in the last decade. Every single planet that resisted was completely destroyed. Every planet that surrendered was stripped of resources and its people enslaved. So surrender means slow death, and fighting means fast death," the president said quietly. "That appears to be the situation, sir." Dr. Minke burst into the command center, his lab coat still covered in chemical stains. He was the head of Earth's Experimental Weapons Division, a man who had been called crazy by his colleagues for years. His hair was messy, and his glasses were crooked, but his eyes were bright with desperate hope. "Mr. President, I need to speak with you immediately," he said, breathing hard from running. "Doctor, we're in the middle of a crisis." "This is about the crisis, sir. I have something that might help. Something we've been working on in secret." President Dong-Su gestured for him to continue. Dr. Min-Ki pulled out a tablet and showed them a design that looked like a mix between a bomb and a computer. "We call it Project Silence. It's a quantum resonance disruptor. In theory, it could disable their entire fleet." "In theory?" Hayren asked. "We've never tested it at full scale. And there's a problem. It has to be delivered manually, from very close range. The person who triggers it—" Dr. Min-Ki's voice trailed off. "They won't survive," the president finished. "No, sir, they won't. Captain, G1 received new orders an hour later. All Earth Defense Force ships were to fall back to defensive positions around the moon. They would make their stand there, buying time for the evacuation ships to launch. She knew it was hopeless, but orders were orders. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We've received word that Earth is under attack by a hostile alien force. We are severely outnumbered and outgunned. But we are Earth's defenders, and we will not let our world fall without a fight. All crew to battle stations." The crew of the Taeguk moved with practiced efficiency, but Ji-Wan could see the fear in their eyes. They were good soldiers, but they were only human. How could humans fight against aliens with technology that seemed like magic? Back on the alien command ship, Fleet Commander Vextar studied the human military positions with amusement. The primitive spacecraft were arranging themselves in what they probably thought was a defensive formation. It was almost sad. His own ship could destroy their entire fleet with a single volley. "Commander," said his tactical officer, "the humans have 49 combat vessels and 1 command station, all using chemical propulsion and primitive energy weapons. Their shields appear to be basic electromagnetic barriers." "How long to break their resistance?" Vextar asked. "Estimated 6 minutes for complete fleet destruction, sir." Vextar nodded. It was always the same. Every species thought they were special, that they could somehow fight against the might of the collective. They were always wrong. Soon, Earth would be another conquered world, its resources feeding the Empire, its people working in the mines and factories. But something nagged at him. The humans had not immediately surrendered. Most species gave up as soon as they saw the fleet. These humans were actually preparing to fight. It was either very brave or very stupid. Vextar suspected it was the latter. The countdown had begun. In 71 hours and 36 minutes, the Viridian fleet would begin its attack. Earth's defenders prepared for what they knew would be their final battle, while scientists worked frantically on a weapon that might save them all. But first, someone would have to volunteer to die for their world. 24 hours remained before the Viridian deadline. In the depths of the Seoul Command Bunker, Colonel Jae-sung stood before President Dong-Su and the military leadership. His uniform was crisp and his posture straight, but everyone in the room knew what he was volunteering for. "Sir, I request permission to pilot the Ghost Protocol mission," Jae-sung said in a steady voice. Dr. Min-Ki looked uncomfortable. His experimental ship was barely tested, and the quantum weapon had never been used outside of computer simulations. The Ghost Protocol was Earth's only hope, but it was also a death sentence for whoever flew it. "Colonel, you understand what this mission means," President Dong-Su said carefully. "Yes, sir, I understand completely, but if we don't try, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, Earth might survive." Admiral Kyung-ho studied the young officer. Jae-sung was one of their best pilots with more than 200 combat missions. He was also unmarried with no children. It was a terrible way to choose who would die for their world. But these were terrible times. "The mission is approved," the president said finally. "May God protect you, Colonel." While the military prepared for their final desperate gambit, Captain Yu Jin was leading the largest evacuation in human history. 17 civilian ships sat in orbit around Earth, their cargo holds packed with families, scientists, and anyone else they could fit. Each ship could carry about 20,000 people, but Earth had 12 billion inhabitants. Yu Jin stood on the bridge of the evacuation command ship New Dawn, watching the loading reports scroll across her screen. The numbers were heartbreaking. They could save less than 500,000 people. The rest would have to stay and face whatever came next. "Captain, we're at maximum capacity on all ships," reported her first officer. "Engineering says if we pack any more people in, the life support systems will fail." "Keep loading," Yu Jin ordered. "We'll make it work somehow. Every person we save is a victory." Among the evacuees was Dr. So Young, a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that aliens had actually arrived, she wished she had been wrong about everything. She sat in the crowded passenger compartment of the research vessel Scholar's Ark, surrounded by crying children and worried parents. In her lap was a computer tablet containing everything Earth had learned about the Viridian Collective. Most of it came from intercepted radio transmissions and deep space observations. The aliens used quantum-based technology for almost everything: communications, weapons, shields, even their artificial intelligence systems. Dr. So Young had been studying these transmissions for years, looking for weaknesses. The Viridians seemed to network all their technology together, creating a web of connected systems that spanned their entire empire. It made them incredibly efficient, but it might also be their weakness. Back on the alien command ship, Fleet Commander Vexatar was growing impatient. The humans were taking too long to surrender. Usually, primitive species gave up within hours of seeing the collective's fleet. These humans were actually evacuating their population and preparing for war. "Status report," he commanded. "The human military has moved 50 ships into defensive positions around their moon," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to be using some kind of stealth technology. Several ships have disappeared from our sensors." Vextar was mildly interested. Human stealth technology was probably just primitive sensor jamming, but it showed more intelligence than most conquered species displayed. Perhaps these humans would provide better workers than usual. What about their evacuation ships? 17 vessels have launched from orbit. They contain approximately 340,000 humans. Should we destroy them? No. Let them run. When we conquer their homeworld, we can always hunt down the survivors later. Sometimes it's useful to have a few examples of what happens to species that resist the collective. On board the Earth defense ship Taeguk, Captain Jiwon was preparing her crew for battle. The ship's weapons had been upgraded with everything Earth's engineers could manage in 24 hours. It wasn't much, but it was something. Lieutenant Ram, the youngest officer on the bridge, was monitoring alien communications from her station. She was fresh out of the academy, barely 22 years old, and this was supposed to be her first routine patrol mission. Instead, she was about to fight in humanity's last battle. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Ram reported. "What kind of strange?" "The alien ships are all broadcasting on the same quantum frequency. It's like they're all connected to one giant network. And the frequency? It's almost identical to our experimental quantum computers." Ji-won frowned. Earth had been working on quantum computing for decades, but the technology was still very new. If the aliens used similar principles, maybe human scientists could find a way to interfere with their systems. "Send that data to Dr. Minki immediately," she ordered. In his underground laboratory, Dr. Minki was making final adjustments to the Ghost Protocol weapon. The device looked like a metal briefcase filled with quantum processors and energy coils. When activated, it would release a burst of quantum energy that should theoretically disrupt any connected quantum systems within a large radius. The problem was range. The weapon would only work at very close distance, close enough that the Pilot would be inside the blast radius. Colonel Jae-sung would have to fly right up to the alien command ship before triggering the device. "Dr. Min-ki," his assistant called out, "we're receiving new data from the Taguk." Min-ki studied the quantum frequency readings that Lieutenant Boram had discovered. His eyes widened as he understood what he was seeing. The alien ships weren't just using quantum technology. They were all connected through quantum entanglement. Every ship in their fleet was linked to every other ship through the same network. "This changes everything," he whispered. He began frantically, reprogramming the weapon. If he was right, the quantum disruption wouldn't just affect one ship. It would spread through their entire network like a virus, jumping from ship to ship until it reached every vessel in the fleet. Colonel Jae-sung was already in the cockpit of his stealth ship, running through pre-flight checks. The Ghost Protocol was smaller than a normal fighter, built entirely from experimental materials that absorbed sensor waves. It was designed to be invisible to alien detection systems. Dr. Min-ki's voice came through the communication system. "Colonel, I'm uploading new mission parameters. The weapon is more powerful than we thought. When you trigger it, the effect should spread to multiple enemy ships." "How many ships?" Jae-sung asked. There was a pause. "Possibly all of them." Jae-sung felt his heart skip a beat. If the weapon could really disable the entire alien fleet, then his sacrifice might actually save Earth. He had been prepared to die for a small chance of victory. Now it seemed like he might be dying for a real chance to win. "Roger that, Doctor." Beginning. Launch sequence. The Ghost Protocol lifted off from its hidden base and began the long journey toward the alien fleet. Using its stealth technology, it would take several hours to reach the enemy command ship undetected. Jae-sung settled in for the flight, knowing it would be his last. On Earth, millions of people gathered around television screens and computer monitors to watch the evacuation ships disappear into hyperspace. President Dong-soo gave a final speech to the planet, promising that Earth would not surrender without a fight. "To our children among the stars," he said, looking directly into the camera, "remember who we were. Remember that we chose to stand and fight rather than bow to tyranny. And remember that sometimes the smallest light can push back the greatest darkness." Captain Yu Jin, now safely in hyperspace with the 17 evacuation ships, received the president's speech through quantum communication. Around her, 340,000 human refugees listened to what might be the last words ever spoken by their homeworld. Dr. So-young was analyzing the quantum frequency data when she made a disturbing discovery. The alien network wasn't just connecting their ships, it was connected to their entire empire. If Dr. Min-ki's weapon really could spread through quantum entanglement, it might reach far beyond the fleet attacking Earth. She tried to send a warning, but the evacuation ships were already too far away. Whatever was going to happen at Earth would happen without her input. She could only hope that Dr. Min-ki understood the full implications of what he had created. Back in the Sol system, the alien deadline was approaching. Fleet Commander Vextar prepared to give the order for planetary bombardment. The humans had chosen to resist, and now they would face the consequences. It would be over quickly, but in the darkness between Earth and the alien fleet, a small stealth ship continued its approach toward the command vessel. Colonel Jae-sung checked his instruments one more time and began the final phase of his mission. In a few hours, they would all discover whether humanity's last desperate gamble would pay off. The first energy beams from the Viridian fleet lit up space like deadly lightning. Captain Ji-won watched from the bridge of the Taeguk as the alien weapons tore through Earth's defensive line. Ships that had been her friends and colleagues just moments before became expanding clouds of metal and fire. "Evasive maneuvers!" she shouted over the noise of exploding circuits and screaming alarms. The Taeguk rolled hard to port as a massive energy beam sliced through the space where they had been The alien weapons were more powerful than anyone had imagined. Human shields collapsed like paper in a hurricane. Ships that had taken years to build were destroyed in seconds. Lieutenant Boram was thrown against her console as another blast rocked the ship. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but she kept working at her station. The communication systems were failing, but she was still getting readings from the alien fleet. "Captain, their quantum network is active," she called out. "All their ships are connected. When one ship targets something, they all know about it instantly." That explained how the aliens were so accurate. They weren't just fighting 50 human ships, they were fighting with the combined intelligence of 300 vessels, all sharing information at the speed of light. Admiral Kyung-ho's flagship, the Soul's Pride, was taking heavy damage. Half. His crew was dead, and the ship's main engines were offline. Through the smoke and sparks on his bridge, he could see the alien fleet advancing toward Earth like a wall of death. "Sir, we've lost contact with 12 ships," his tactical officer reported. "The Manchester, the Lagos, the Mumbai, they're all gone." Kyung-ho closed his eyes for a moment. Those ships had carried his friends, people he had served with for decades. Now they were dead, and their sacrifice was buying Earth only a few extra minutes. "All remaining ships, fall back to the secondary defense line," he ordered. "Make them work for every kilometer." Colonel Jae-sung was still 2 hours away from the alien command ship when the battle began. From his position in the Ghost Protocol, he could see the energy weapons firing in the distance like a deadly fireworks display. Each flash of light meant more of his friends were dying. Dr. Min-Ki's voice crackled through the communication system. "Colonel, the weapon is ready for deployment. Remember, you need to get within 1,000 kilometers of their command ship before triggering it." "Understood," Jae-sung replied. He was trying to stay calm, but his hands were shaking on the controls. He had always known he might die in combat, but this was different. This was planned suicide for a weapon that might not even work. On Earth, Dr. Min-Ki watched the battle from his underground laboratory. The quantum readings were spiking across all frequencies as the alien weapons fired. Each energy discharge created ripples in space-time that his sensitive instruments could detect. But something strange was happening. The human weapons, though mostly ineffective against alien shields, were causing tiny fluctuations in the Viridian quantum network. It was like throwing pebbles at a spider web, individually meaningless, but creating small vibrations that spread through the entire structure. "That's it," he whispered to himself. "The network has to stay stable to function. Any disruption spreads through the whole system." He began frantically adjusting the weapon's programming, uploading new code to Colonel Jae-sung's ship. If he was right, the quantum virus wouldn't just disable one ship. It would cascade through their entire fleet like a disease. Aboard the evacuation ship New Horizon, Dr. So Young was monitoring the battle through long-range sensors. The quantum frequency data she was receiving confirmed her worst fears. The alien network wasn't just connecting the ships in Earth's system, it was linked to their entire empire across dozens of star systems. If Dr. Min-Ki's weapon really could spread through quantum entanglement, it might reach every Viridian ship in the galaxy. She didn't know if that was good or bad. It might save Earth, but it could also start a war that would destroy both species. She tried to send a warning to Earth, but the battle was creating too much interference. All she could do was watch and hope that someone understood the consequences of what they were about to unleash. Fleet Commander Vextar was enjoying the battle more than he had expected. The humans were fighting with surprising skill and determination. Their primitive weapons couldn't penetrate Viridian shields. But they were using clever tactics and teamwork that forced his fleet to work harder than usual. "Sir, we've destroyed 23 human vessels," his tactical officer reported. "The remaining ships are retreating toward their moon. Let them run. Begin targeting their planet. I want their major cities destroyed within the hour. Massive." Energy cannons emerged from the alien ships, weapons designed to crack planets and boil oceans. They began charging with a low hum that could be felt throughout the fleet. Soon, Earth would be nothing but a ball of molten rock. Captain Ji-won's Taeguk was one of the few ships still fighting effectively. Her crew had managed to jury-rig their weapons to fire in rapid bursts, creating small overloads in the alien shields. It wasn't enough to cause real damage, but it was forcing the enemy to divert power to their defensive systems. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in the alien fleet," Lieutenant Bo Ram reported. "They're charging planet-killer weapons." Ji-won felt her blood turn to ice. She had heard about such weapons from other alien encounters. They could destroy all life on a planet in minutes, turning continents into seas of lava. "All ships, focus. Fire on the lead vessels," she ordered. "We have to disrupt their targeting systems." The surviving human ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy bolts and missile trails filled space as Earth's defenders made their final desperate attack. But their weapons were like arrows bouncing off castle walls. The alien ships barely noticed the assault. Colonel Jae-sung was now close enough to see the alien command ship with his own eyes. It was a massive vessel, at least 5 kilometers long, covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Strange lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at. His stealth systems were working perfectly. The alien sensors couldn't detect his small ship against the background of space. He was like a mouse creeping toward a sleeping dragon, hoping not to wake it before he could strike. 15 minutes to optimal firing position, he reported to Dr. Min-ki. "Colonel, I've uploaded the final weapon parameters. When you trigger the device, it will release a quantum cascade that should spread through their entire network. But be warned, the effect might be larger than we anticipated." Jae-sung didn't ask what that meant. It didn't matter anymore. Either the weapon would work or Earth would die. There were no other options left. On Earth, President Dong-su was watching the battle from the Seoul command bunker. The tactical displays showed the brutal reality. Earth's fleet was being systematically destroyed, and the alien planet killers were almost ready to fire. "How long do we have?" he asked Defense Minister Hae-rin. "The alien weapons will be fully charged in 12 minutes. Once they fire, every major city on Earth will be destroyed within an hour." Dong-su thought about the billions of people above, them going about their daily lives, not knowing that death was approaching from space. Some were probably looking up at the stars, watching the flashes of light from the battle and wondering what was happening. Admiral Kyung-ho's voice came through the communication system, weak and distorted. "Mr. President, this is our final transmission. The Seoul's pride is critically damaged. We've done everything we can. It's up to Colonel Jae-sung now." The transmission cut to static. On the tactical display, the icon representing the Seoul's pride flickered and disappeared. Admiral Kyung-ho, the man who had defended Earth for 30 years, was gone. Colonel Jae-sung saw the explosion of the flagship in the distance, a bright flash, and then nothing. He gripped his controls tighter and continued his approach toward the alien command ship. Every second counted now. 5 minutes to weapons range, he reported. The quantum cascade device was humming with energy in the cargo bay behind him. Dr. Min-ki had explained that it would create a resonance wave that would spread through any connected quantum systems. The alien fleet was one giant quantum network, so the effect should jump from ship to ship until it reached every vessel. But Jae-sung would be at the center of the blast. The quantum energy would tear his ship apart at the molecular level. He would die instantly, but Earth might live. "This is Colonel Jae-sung to all human forces," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Project Silence is go in 4 minutes. Get clear of the alien fleet. Whatever happens next, remember that we chose to fight. We chose to stand for something greater than ourselves." He switched off the communication system and focused on his approach to the alien command ship. In the distance, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the stars. It was beautiful and fragile and worth dying for. 3 minutes to weapons range. The alien planet killers were almost ready to fire. Soon, they would all discover whether humanity's last desperate gamble would save their world or simply add one more tragedy to the cosmos. Colonel Jae-sung pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Ghost Protocol continued drifting toward the alien command ship, and space looked exactly the same as it had seconds before. Then the quantum cascade device activated. A wave of invisible energy erupted from Jae-sung's ship, expanding outward at the speed of light. It was like dropping a stone into a perfectly still pond, except the ripples were made of pure quantum force that could pass through any material as if it didn't exist. The wave hit the Viridian command ship first. The alien vessel's quantum shields flickered once, twice, then collapsed completely. Every quantum-based system on the ship began shutting down as the cascade disrupted their fundamental operating frequencies. Fleet Commander Vextar was thrown from his command chair as his ship's artificial gravity failed. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power grid collapsed. All around him, his crew was shouting in panic as their technology stopped working. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. All quantum systems are offline. Engines, weapons, shields, communications, everything is failing." Vextar couldn't understand it. Human weapons were primitive, barely capable of scratching Viridian hull plating. How could they have done this? But the quantum cascade was just beginning. The wave spread from the command ship to the next vessel in the fleet through their quantum communication links. The alien ships were all connected in a vast network, sharing information instantly across thousands of light years. Now that network was carrying their destruction. Dr. So-young watched from the evacuation ship New Horizon as impossible things began happening. One by one, the massive alien warships were going dark. Their engines stopped firing, their weapons powered down, and their shields collapsed. It was like watching giants fall asleep. "What's happening down there?" asked Captain Yu Jin, staring at the long-range sensor readings. "I think Dr. Min-Ki's weapon worked," So-young replied, hardly believing her own words. "The quantum cascade is spreading through their network faster than they can stop it." Ship after ship fell silent as the cascade reached them. The Viridians had built their entire fleet around quantum technology, making every vessel dependent on quantum computers, quantum communications, and quantum energy systems. Now that dependence was killing them. Captain Ji-won watched from the bridge of the damaged Taeguk as the alien fleet died around her. The massive warships that had been firing devastating energy beams just minutes before were now floating helplessly in space. Their hulls were intact, but nothing inside them was working. "Captain, we're reading total system failures across the entire enemy fleet," Lieutenant Boram reported, her voice filled with amazement. 299 ships have gone completely dark." "What about the 300th ship?" It's running away, ma'am. One vessel on the edge of the formation has broken off and is heading out of the system at maximum speed." Ji-won nodded grimly. One ship had escaped, probably by cutting all connections to the network before the cascade could reach it. That ship would carry word of Earth's victory back to the Viridian Empire, but for now it didn't matter. Earth was safe. The planet killer. Weapons that had been charging to destroy Earth's cities suddenly went silent. The massive energy that had been building up in the alien cannons dissipated harmlessly into space. The weapons that could have cracked continents were now just pieces of dead metal floating in the dark. On Earth, Dr. Min-Ki stared at his instruments in shock. The quantum readings showed the cascade spreading through the alien fleet exactly, as he had hoped, but the effect was far larger than his calculations had predicted. The cascade wasn't just disabling the ships, it was completely destroying every quantum system it touched. "My God," he whispered. "What have we done?" President. Dong-Su received the first reports from the surviving defense ships 20 minutes after the cascade began. Admiral Kyung-ho was dead, along with thousands of other brave defenders, but Earth had won. The impossible had happened. Humanity had defeated a vastly superior alien fleet. "Mr. President," Defense Minister Hae-rin said quietly, "we're receiving automated distress signals from the alien ships. Their life support systems are failing." There might be survivors trapped inside. Dongsu felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. The aliens had come to destroy Earth and enslave humanity, but they were still living beings. Did Earth have a responsibility to help them? Organize rescue operations for any alien survivors, he ordered. We'll sort out the legal and political issues later. Right now, we save lives. Captain Ji-won's Taguk was one of the few human ships, still capable of movement. Her crew had suffered casualties, but the ship could fly and fight. She received orders to investigate the dead alien vessels and look for survivors. As the Taguk approached the nearest Viridian ship, Ji-won could see through the hull breaches where emergency lighting still flickered. The ship was huge, larger than any human vessel ever built, but it was completely helpless now. "Life signs?" she asked her science officer, detecting approximately 2,000 alien life forms aboard that vessel. Most appear to be in emergency shelters with independent life support. They're alive, but probably not for long. Lieutenant Bo-Ram was monitoring communications from the dead alien fleet. Most of it was automated distress calls, but some signals were clearly alien voices calling for help in their own language. "Captain, I'm picking up manual transmissions from several ships. I think some of the alien crew are still conscious and trying to communicate. Can you translate any of it?" "Some of it, ma'am. They're asking for rescue. They're scared." Ji-won thought about that. Hours ago, these same aliens had been preparing to destroy every city on Earth. Now they were helpless and afraid, trapped in their own dead ships. War was a terrible thing, but it was over now. On the evacuation ship Scholar's Ark, Dr. So-Young was analyzing the quantum cascade, readings when she made a disturbing discovery. The cascade wasn't just spreading through the local alien fleet, it was traveling along quantum communication links that stretched across the galaxy. Every Viridian ship, space station, and quantum facility that was connected to their network was being hit by the cascade. The effect was spreading to other star systems, other planets, other fleets that had never heard of Earth. "Captain Eugene," she called urgently, "we need to send a message to Earth immediately. The quantum cascade is spreading beyond this system. It's affecting the entire Viridian Empire." Eugene felt a chill run down her spine. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Based on the network topology I've been studying, probably thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Every Viridian vessel in the galaxy that's connected to their quantum grid." The implications were staggering. Earth had just accidentally disabled the entire Viridian fleet across dozens of star systems. Thousands of alien ships were now floating, helplessly in space, their crews trapped and dying. But there was another implication that was even more important. The Viridian Empire had conquered 47 worlds, enslaving billions of alien beings from other species. If their ships were disabled, those enslaved populations might be able to fight back. Dr. Min-Ki received So-Young's message 3 hours after the cascade began. He sat in his laboratory, surrounded by quantum equipment and computer screens, trying to understand what his weapon had really done. The cascade was supposed to disable one alien fleet. Instead, it had spread through quantum entanglement to affect every connected system in the Viridian Empire. It was like a virus, jumping from ship to ship through their own communication network. "We didn't just save Earth," he said to his assistant. "We might have accidentally liberated half the galaxy." Fleet Commander Vexitar was rescued from his disabled command ship 6 hours after the cascade hit. He was one of the lucky ones. Many Viridian ships had lost life support completely, and their crews had died in the cold vacuum of space. As human rescue teams pulled him from the wreckage of his vessel, Vexitar couldn't understand what had happened. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds with their superior technology. How had these primitive humans defeated them so completely? The answer was simple, though he would never understand it. The Viridians had built their empire on the assumption that their technology was perfect and their network was unbreakable. They had never considered that their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. Humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow. Earth was safe, but millions of aliens were dead or dying in disabled ships across the galaxy. The war was over, but the consequences of their desperate gamble were just beginning. In space around Earth, 17 human evacuation ships slowly turned around and began the journey home. They carried the seeds of humanity's future, but they were returning to a world that had changed forever. Earth was no longer just another planet. It was the world that had brought down an empire with a single, desperate act. The stars looked different now. They were no longer filled with unknown threats, but with the promise of new allies among the species that the Viridians had enslaved. Humanity had saved itself, but in doing so, it had also saved countless others. Colonel Jae Sung's sacrifice had accomplished more than anyone could have imagined. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Earth. The world was still rebuilding, but life was slowly returning to normal. Cities that had been evacuated were filling up again. Factories were running. Children were going to school. But everything was different now. Humanity knew they were not alone in the universe. Captain Eugene stood on the observation deck of the New Dawn, looking out at the 17 evacuation ships that had become humanity's first interstellar fleet. Each ship was now home to thousands of people who had chosen to stay in space rather than return to Earth. They were building new colonies on distant worlds, carrying human culture to the stars. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler colony," her communications officer reported. "They've made contact with another species." Eugene smiled. It was happening more and more often now. The 17 ships had spread out across local space, and everywhere they went, they found alien species that had been enslaved by the Viridians. The quantum cascade had freed more than just Earth. Dr. So Young was aboard the research vessel, Scholar's Ark, studying data from 47 different alien species. Her small laboratory had become the center of the largest xenobiological research project in history. Every day brought new discoveries about life in the galaxy. "The reports are all the same," she told her research team during their morning briefing. "The Viridian ships went dark simultaneously across every system. Local populations that had been enslaved for decades suddenly found their captors helpless. The quantum cascade had spread farther than anyone had imagined. Viridian ships in star. Systems hundreds of light years from Earth had been disabled at exactly the same moment. The aliens' quantum network, which had made them so powerful, had become the pathway for their own destruction. On Earth, Admiral Kyung-ho's replacement, Admiral Song-mi, was dealing with an unexpected problem. Alien refugees were arriving at Earth almost daily. Species that had been freed from Viridian control wanted to meet the humans who had saved them. "We have delegations from 12 different worlds waiting to establish diplomatic relations," she reported to President Dong Su during their weekly security briefing. "And that's just this week." The president rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working 18-hour days for months, trying to manage Earth's sudden transformation from an isolated world to the center of galactic politics. "What do they want?" he asked. "Most want to establish trade relationships. Some want military alliances. A few want to share technology with us. One species wants to build a monument to Colonel Jae Sung on their homeworld. Dr. Min-ki was in his laboratory working on a very different project than 6 months ago. Instead of weapons, he was now developing communication systems that could work across interstellar distances without using quantum networks. The galaxy needed a way for different species to talk to each other safely. The Viridians made a mistake," he explained to his team. "They built their entire civilization around one type of technology. When that technology failed, everything collapsed. We need to make sure that never happens to anyone else." His new communication system used a combination of technologies, quantum entanglement for speed, but with electromagnetic and gravitational wave backups in case the quantum systems failed. It was slower than what the Viridians had used, but it was much safer. Captain Ji-won was commanding the new flagship Phoenix Rising. leading Earth's defense fleet on patrol missions throughout local space. The human fleet was still small compared to what the Viridians had commanded, but it was growing quickly with help from their new alien allies. "Captain, we're approaching the Vega system," reported Lieutenant Bo Ram, who had been promoted to commander after the battle. "The local species is requesting assistance with cleanup operations." The Vega system had been a major Viridian military base. When the cascade hit, dozens of alien warships had been disabled in orbit around the local planet. Some had crashed to the surface, and the environmental damage was severe. "Take us in, Commander. Let's see what we can do to help." This was humanity's new role in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as helpers. The species that had been freed from Viridian control often needed assistance with cleanup, rebuilding, and establishing new governments. Earth's 17 ships had become a traveling relief force, helping wherever they were needed. On one of the evacuated Viridian ships floating in Earth orbit, Fleet Commander Vextar sat in a human prison cell, trying to understand what had happened to his empire. He had been captured during the rescue operations and was now the highest-ranking Viridian prisoner in human custody. "Your empire is finished," President Dong Su told him during one of their regular interrogation sessions. 47 worlds have declared independence. Your ships are scrap metal. Your quantum network is destroyed." Vextar looked at the human leader with confusion. "Why haven't you killed me? In the collective, prisoners are executed immediately." "Because we're not the collective," Dong Su replied. "We believe that even our enemies deserve fair treatment." It was a concept that Vextar couldn't understand. The Viridian way was simple. The strong ruled the weak, and there was no mercy for the defeated. But these humans seemed to operate by different rules. Dr. So Young had spent months interviewing Viridian prisoners, trying to understand their society. What she learned was disturbing. The Viridians had conquered so many worlds that they had forgotten how to do anything except fight and rule. Their entire culture was based on military dominance. "They don't know how to live in peace," she reported to the Xenocultural Committee. "For them, there are only two states, conqueror or conquered. The idea of cooperation between equals is completely foreign to them." This explained why the Viridian Empire had collapsed so completely when their military was disabled. They had no backup systems, no diplomatic relationships, no trade networks that weren't based on force. When their ships stopped working, they had nothing left. Captain Yu Jin received an urgent message while the New Dawn was visiting the Proxima Centauri colony. It was from Earth, marked with the highest priority codes. "Captain, this is Admiral Songmi. We've detected a massive fleet approaching the outer edge of our solar system. 1,000 ships, all Viridian design. They'll reach Earth in 72 hours." Yu Jin felt her blood turn cold. 1,000 ships was twice the size of the original invasion fleet. If the Viridians had built new vessels that were immune to the quantum cascade, Earth might be facing its final battle. All evacuation. "Ships, return to Earth immediately," she ordered. "Maximum speed." But when the new Viridian fleet reached Earth, something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, they broadcast a surrender message on all frequencies. The fleet was commanded by Admiral Tae Rom, a Viridian military leader who had been on the far edge of the Empire when the cascade hit. "People of Earth," Tae Rom's message began, "I come not as a conqueror, but as a petitioner. The Viridian collective is dead. Our empire has collapsed. Our people are scattered and leaderless. We request permission to establish a colony on an uninhabited world in your system." President Dong Su was stunned. The aliens who had tried to destroy Earth 6 months ago were now asking for sanctuary. It was the ultimate irony. The would-be conquerors had become refugees. The decision wasn't easy. Many humans wanted nothing to do with the Viridians, remembering the billions who had died during the invasion attempt. But others argued that showing mercy to former enemies was what separated humanity from the collective. "We'll give them a chance," Dongsu announced after days of debate. "But they'll be monitored closely, and any sign of aggression will result in immediate expulsion from our system." Dr. Minke was working on a new project when he received a visitor he never expected. Dr. Kexa Hall was a Viridian scientist who had been studying the quantum cascade for months, trying to understand how the humans had achieved the impossible. "Your weapon," Kexa said through his translation device. "It should not have worked. Our quantum shields were designed to stop all forms of energy-based attack." "That's because it wasn't really a weapon," Minke replied. "It was more like a virus. It used your own technology against you." The two scientists spent hours discussing quantum mechanics and network theory. Despite their species' recent conflict, they found common ground in their love of scientific discovery. It was a small step toward understanding between former enemies. Lieutenant, Commander Bo-Ram was monitoring communications from across the galaxy when she intercepted something that made her call Captain Jiwon immediately. "Captain, you need to hear this. I'm picking up messages from the former Viridian territories. They're not just declaring independence, they're asking to join something called the Free Worlds Alliance." The alliance was humanity's idea, a loose confederation of independent worlds that could cooperate for mutual defense and trade without any single species dominating the others. It was the opposite of the Viridian Empire's hierarchical structure. "How many worlds are interested?" Jiwon asked. 43 so far, ma'am, and more are joining every day." Dr. So-Young was analyzing the cultural data from the new alliance members when she made a remarkable discovery. Despite being conquered by the Viridians, many species had secretly maintained their own traditions and values.